Hello, everyone. So excited to have you back on today for this spicy episode that's about to unfold. I have on one of my besties in the coaching world, JoJo Seamons, who is a visionary intimacy and embodiment coach, a Reiki master, intuitive medium, and now a dominatrix, supporting women and couples in conscious connection through consent, communication, Shibari, and relationships designed by choice. Oh, so juicy. I'm so excited to have her on the show today. We are talking some edgy things today, some relationships by design, some Shibari information, how to establish communication and trust when you're introducing techniques like this and skills like this into the relationship. And yeah, I call her my little spiritual rebel. She introduced herself as that once when we were on a call together, and I was like, that landed. She is forever now my spiritual rebel friend. So I'm really excited to have JoJo on the show today. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to the show. We hope that you find this interesting. I know I certainly did when I first got introduced to Shibari. Well, you know what? We'll probably talk about that in the show. Let's bring her on. Hi, JoJo. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you on. We did an episode before. Do you remember the internet went out and we had to re-record?
I vaguely remember this.
Yes.
It's been so
It's
long.
been a couple years, but yeah, you were recording, you led us through like a visualization for the archetypes,
Mhm.
and it was so good. And you led me through it when we were recording the podcast. And then so I had my eyes closed, I was all in it, and then all of a sudden it was like silent, and I'm like, wait, is this just really a long pause or did something happen? So I like peeked my eye open. I'm like, oh fuck, we lost internet. So
No connection. Technology
oh,
always works out like that. It just
I-
wasn't meant to be recorded.
no, the second time around was probably better, was better, and yeah, here we are today back at it.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. And talking, yeah, just a little juicier conversation today. Of course, archetypes can get juicy too, but yeah, just talking all things, not all things, honing in on the kinky things of Shibari, but I love the lens that you get to bring to it with like the boundaries and the consent conversation that we're going to get in today around it. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. I introduced you, you once said this on a call, I introduced you as the spiritual rebel. And because you introduced yourself, there's that one time, and I was like, it just forever, JoJo is my spiritual rebel. And I want to share you to share because you live quite the lifestyle and all these
Yes.
kinky things and spiritual things that you do. So I just want to help the audience know a little bit more about you and like how you move through love and sex and life and spirituality and all the things.
Such a juicy question.
Mhm.
Um, where to start? I feel like really for me, what comes up to share is just genuinely, I operate out of massive duality. And it's on one spectrum, like you said, spiritual, but there is the rebel that for so long growing up in a religious constrict, well, just strict, I would say, upbringing. For me, it was really about always being a little rebellious, a little mischievous.
Mhm.
And so, really honoring that. And it really is a beautiful balance when I've tapped in and led from a very heart led space instead of trying to contort myself to be something for someone else. And so, I really just honor being a rebel in life as a woman and owning that sex can be from a very powerful place, that it doesn't have to be from and this was my personal lived experience, but it for so many years was disconnected and disassociated.
Mhm.
And the more I get into, like you say, the frivolous lifestyle that I live is like it's flavor, and I learn and grow so much in these spaces, and we can go into like what they are, but
Mhm.
I learn not only so much about myself, but I learn so much about others. And there's just such a key to vulnerability in this work of showing up transparently and being able to communicate, like, hey, this is what I want. And so many people, like we even connect with, don't know what we want. And so I just love leading that life of showing people that it can be whatever you want it to be.
Mhm.
That's really what it is. So that's what a spiritual rebel to me means. It's like you can really be whoever and whatever you want to be. Like you
Mhm.
want to be a badass, great. You want to be a cozy woman, sexy woman that day, great.
Mhm.
Like it's all welcomed. And I think the more women honor themselves in whatever season they're in, that's really when the magic happens.
Mhm.
And there's no forcing or fixing in that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like the rebel to me is like the questioning of things or the curiosity of things. And you speak a lot about designing like relationships by design, not by default, and really having yeah, like questioning the scripts around monogamy and commitment and roles and like what is like supposed to be or what way like things should be. And that's one thing that sticks out to me in just you as a person and also the work that you bring to the women and clients that you're working with is exploring that with them and like pushing those boundaries, pushing those beliefs with them and then helping them create that safety of like you'll be okay doing that. Like it's okay. Permission essentially, right, to explore those things.
Yeah, and I think I mean the permission is so huge. So I think you touched on two of like the most important things, and that's curiosity and
Hmm.
permission. And it really comes down usually to self-permission. It's we're constantly waiting for someone else to say, "Hey, go ahead." And nobody's coming to tell you.
Yeah.
No one's coming to save you. And I think I live from a space of just like truth of going through it because I like to learn the hard way. I always say. Um, and I'm someone that's willing to put in messy action. I'm someone that's willing to fuck up. And of course, I'm always like apologetic on the other side of that if necessary. But I just find that that is where growth happens is if we actually try.
Hmm.
And for so long I didn't. So I think I want to always speak to that is like this wasn't always the choice. It was always a choice. It wasn't always what I was choosing.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I want to get into the consent piece because I think this is so important as we get into more of our kinky conversation and Shibari led conversation today. Because it's right, like consent is moving beyond just that yes or no. It's so much more than that. We hear like often now the buzzword of enthusiastic consent or ongoing consent. Like, and I think the consent with self we can get maybe into like a whole boundary. Yeah, we could go so many different directions with this episode, but I'm curious for you because you have just over the year, I'm only known you for a few years now, but just the things like you continue these new experiences, these new certifications, new learnings, and I'm curious for you, like how has your understanding of consent evolved through either the work that you have been doing or your lived experiences?
Yeah. I love this question. Lived experience is a huge transition for me because like growing up and trigger warning, but just sexual abuse growing up and being very young and not feeling like I was ever taught about consent. And so through disassociation, what that meant for me in connections, even just one-off connections, was still more disassociation,
Mhm.
more not understanding of what I didn't even know consent was an option. That's literally how basic and like we can all say we're not taught, but it was like I was born into a non-consensual space already, which um is why I do the work that I do. So it's not even like a pity story. It's really how I've turned like my pain point into a PowerPoint. And
Mhm.
so consent, I always joke also, consent is sexy. It's so
Mhm.
sexy. I don't care if that's with yourself or with a partner, and especially with a partner, when a partner can consensually agree with one another on what is happening, what the boundaries are. And I like to take it by a scene. So I like to set like, hey, right now, because consent is ongoing.
Mhm.
It does change and it can change
Mhm.
because really we're working with the nervous system. And so consent to me starts even before we're consenting to anything for ourselves, of even a yes or no, with us checking in on our nervous system.
Mhm.
And so it's so important. And like I say, it can be so sexy. And that's where communication's so necessary
Mhm.
to really develop. And there is a layer of vulnerability going into that space. And I mean, sex in and of itself, we come naked, two souls together, and that is already innately vulnerable. But you start mixing up energies and penetration or even foreplay, and it already is you're moving more energy. It's why you can feel such ecstasy, bliss, or even like sadness and grief after a sexual experience, is because you're shaking and moving up energy. And
Mhm.
so yeah, consent is so beautiful and it helps us find some neutrality in our nervous system in order to negate like really great experiences.
Mhm.
So I see consent broken and I hear people speak up to it in that moment. I've also seen when it comes later because we process later as humans. And
Um,
I do think if you can bring it up in real time, that is super important to practice. It's not always available, but it is important to instill that.
mhm.
So, yeah, leaning into consent in all the facets, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you give us maybe some examples of what consent might sound like?
Yeah. So I always like to have somewhat of a boundary or a like, what are your no's kind of conversation. So when it comes to consent, um, I would be asking a lot of clarity conversations of like, what are you desiring? Because
Mhm.
so there's a lot of layers to this,
Mhm.
honestly, because
Mhm.
what role are you playing? Are you the container holder or are you the one that's just, are you giving or are you receiving?
Mhm.
Um, and beyond that, it's just important to understand. So I think it can be very basic too. I'll give this example. Your husband or your boyfriend just coming up and smacking your ass. Is that consented? And would you like consent before he does that? Because maybe you're in a bad mood, or maybe you've had a long day, and that just
Mhm.
feels like some form of taking energy that you
Mhm.
just don't want to mess with. Um, so I could go into many of details, but I do think a discussion is important to find out and discuss your no's, know what your boundaries are. Um, and I always like to ask, are you willing to communicate? Are you willing to speak up if
Mhm.
something comes up or something changes in this process?
Mhm.
And as the container holder or the one leading anything, is knowing that you get to ongoingly check in and ask, hey, are we good?
Mhm.
And that can be done through so many systems. I really like red light, yellow light, green light.
Mhm.
That's a simple one. However, words are also great and beautiful if you can communicate too.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, I especially like the when in being in experiences with you or other, dominatrix or Shibari experts, like that's one thing that stuck out with me is them asking, do you feel safe? Do you feel good enough essentially to use your voice? Like, do you agree that if something comes up that feels too much for you, you will let me know? And
yes.
yeah, I feel like that's like so hot, first of all, like that I'm even being asked that, like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, I like, I can do that,
Yes,
And
I will.
yes.
I absolutely will.
Yeah. And just that is just what I value and I see in the beauty of these experiences that I think that kinky things can get such a bad rap at times. And when people think of it, it's like red rooms and dungeons. And yes, it can be that, but what happens before you even get to that point? So
Mhm.
much, right? And I know you know this firsthand, like so much information gathering and clarity conversations and yeses and nos and all of that goes into that. And then I was just having this conversation with Danny the other night. I feel like the kink community, the lifestyle community, all that, like they do boundaries and consent so well.
Mhm.
I would even argue like probably better than monogamy people, people that are straight, I'm with you and only you.
Totally. Yeah. And that's been my most recent lived experience since being out in Texas and getting into some more in-person spaces. I was so sheltered in Utah. There was groups and access out there, but I didn't want anybody to know me.
Yeah.
So there was so much like sheltering out there for me. And out here, it's just felt like a lot of freedom. And
Hmm.
I agree. I have had some of the most beautiful connections and even just sensation experiences that didn't and weren't sexual that ended up being some of my most favorite like memorable experiences. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, if people just knew what is accessible to them." That
Hmm.
is because I've been in 2 7-year long marriages
Hmm.
that didn't end up working out, that I was trying to be the monogamous, like good
Good girl.
wife, good girl, yes. And I just refuse anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's all really beautiful.
Yeah. And that will lead us into, so Shibari is something that you are an expert in and have a lot of experience in both giving and receiving. And I want to get into, yeah, just again this layer of communication and trust that needs to take place before these things begin. So what would you say Shibari specifically has taught you about trust and communication?
So much.
I
I
know.
feel so much. Shibari, oh my gosh. I didn't realize how much Shibari would offer me,
Mm,
really. And I think the lens that I'm really trying to teach from is to make it accessible to those that do feel a little timid or a little like, oh, maybe put off or like, wow, that Japanese rope binding girl is a little crazy, but it's as far as trust goes, for me in my own experience in suspension, which means you're up off the ground,
mhm,
there's so much safety and consideration that goes into the foundation of what you are tying. And that is like this temple, this art
mhm,
piece that is a human living being that you get to really take all anatomy and nerve endings and everything into conscious mindset when you're like before you're even starting, really.
mhm, mhm,
And you're taking into account if they have any injuries or
mm,
what they're wanting to emotionally process. So it's same thing in what we were just talking about within like kink spaces. There is so much communication that goes into it. And as far as trust goes, whether it's suspension or floor work, you're working again with a human. There is a lot of trust that you're giving to that person, whether you're tying or being tied. I think it's a very mutual feedback loop, again, of shared energy and connection within rope that you're developing a relationship in that experience together.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's a lot of, like you say, consent, communication,
Mhm, mhm,
prioritizing, and lots of check ins, even just of nerve endings and finger squeezes and um, letting your person even emotionally process and
yeah.
being able to pivot in an experience.
Mhm,
I've had people come in thinking they want a spicy experience and they end up having a completely deep inner child
mhm,
experience. And it's like, we don't know where the rope's going to take us, but
mhm,
we flow with it.
mhm. Yeah, people. I feel so called out, JoJo.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't even thinking about you at that point. I really wasn't, but that's so funny. It sounds like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
It's
well, I'll just bring this out in people.
yeah.
I really was thinking of someone else.
I think it's just the yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And so in these experiences, like you are leaning more into surrender. You are letting go of control. And I
Hmm.
think when we can do that and we do that within a safe container, it's like get ready essentially, right? You don't know what's going to come up. And that's what I love about Shibari is it's not just this sexy thing, kinky thing that you can do. It really it feels like just a beautiful merge of the sexual and the spirituality together, or the sexual and the healing realm of things, right? And then yeah, I think doing that in like a led experience versus then doing it in partnership with like your person, your right, like one that you've chosen. Yeah, just the dynamics that that can bring and the just the extra layer of trust and safety and vulnerability that you can instill then in your relationship by having the courage to explore something like this and knowing probably I remember our first time like it was like a dumpster fire. Like I was like this is not how I envisioned this. Like this is not how I experienced this at the retreat. Like we need to try again here.
Like, I
And
want
it's
another
okay.
round.
Yeah. Like we need more research and education for ourselves in this.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's expansive, and that's even where I just reach it with or meet it with so much care
Hmm.
is we're we're meeting this nervous system beneath the rope and
Yeah.
bringing up quite literally things to the surface. And so it's been really beautiful in my own lens and watching my own clients and hosting spaces with this and seeing what comes of it, and even more and more just feeling the need of really creating deep safety um,
Hmm. Hmm.
for people to process.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I want to touch on too the ability to use Shibari as a tool for that self-healing as well. So one of the things that you taught us at a previous retreat was how to do the ties on ourselves. And you
Mhm.
talked about how you do this essentially every day, right? Like you tie yourself up every day and it's like you can do that, feel that support. I think it's like especially for people that are like myself, like type A structure, like systems, love control. It is a nice practice to like just add little pieces of this into your day and like little practices of this and meet that edge of control and noticing like what am I feeling? What am I like what am I resistance to? What part of control like am I trying to grasp on today and what part of it can I let go of today?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, do you want to add anything to that of like Shibari as a self practice?
Yeah, I mean, really for me, what that came down to was getting out of my own way of excuses of not having people to tie. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and just practicing on myself, but how much of a beautiful, and I have some really great mentors that we can speak out to.
Hmm.
But Rena in particular is one of my biggest mentors in Shibari, and she helps me and has helped me a lot with curating that intentional space. And so just through that lens, I really started to see like, oh, well, why not do it for ourselves?
Hmm.
Like, why not, you know, in yoga training, it was always like student teacher. You want to first become the student before you can become the teacher. And I've
Hmm.
always seen those as like inverse opportunity. And that's where I'm always so willing to grow is like I will never pedestal myself above somebody else. I am your equal. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what your titles are. Like, what is your energy that you show up in?
Hmm.
And like, can we just go take on the world together kind
Hmm.
of ideology? So the inner practice of it is super it's just an invitation to meet yourself every day. And it can go beyond control, like you say, and surrender and just being with what is present. So I really like just a seated, binded position.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll bring the rope up into more of like a harness. But really, something else I love about rope is that it's so unique to how you tie.
Hmm.
So it can be different looking every single day, and you can get a completely different experience.
Hmm.
And so it's really beautiful what the ropes can bring into that space.
Hmm. Yeah. So good, so juicy, and ooh, I hope people hearing this conversation are leaning like, okay, maybe I could try that thing, or maybe I could look at this thing in a different way. And yeah, I know we were talking about like permission and invitation earlier, so I want this episode to be that invitation and permission for people to explore this.
Yes, yeah. My most recent thing I channeled while meditating the other day was like, I guess my one hang up was, how do I get ropes into every single person's hands?
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as people touch ropes, there's something really kind of funny to me. Like men get very like, oh, like men get very curious because their technical logical brains are very ignited in rope. And
Hmm.
there's something about their inner Boy Scout kind of comes out, whether they were
I
Boy
literally
Scouts or
had
not.
that thought. Yeah.
Really, they really do. And women, whether you women are so sensual. And so to even be blindfolded or to be led by your partner, or you're not really craving touch from your partner, but them placing rope on your skin, even not even tying, you don't even have to know how to tie. You can just place the ropes on your skin and it elicits a whole response.
Hmm.
And so that is beautiful alone. You don't even need to know how to tie or bind. And there are such simple things. That's why I want to get it into everyone's hands, is because I love to see couples deepen their intimacy.
Hmm.
I love to get into a space where they feel like they can be vulnerable and we can walk through like their energies and what they want to bring to the table and their curiosities and how they can actually physically use their space, but also like ignite the passion and imagination in their relationship of what is available. And
Hmm.
that's just like, I mean, that's the spiritual rebel in me again, is just like, oh, guys, like I see it for you. I see what is out there.
Hmm.
And it's getting people to want that. So,
Hmm.
and they want it. People want it. They just don't even know it's out there. Sometimes it can be like, oh.
Yeah.
And so I get where Shibari can be like that a little bit to
Hmm.
people. Like I think recently I got a comment from someone very random off social media, but it was like, I don't understand what's happening here. So it's like, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get that. And you don't need to understand it. And I also like, please ask questions because I want you to understand it too.
Mhm.
And I don't need people to understand it, but I want people to try it. I really hope people are genuinely curious about it because it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And to use it in whatever space you want. Do you want to use it in a healing space? Do you want to use it in a sensual way? Do you want to use it in a sexual way?
Mhm.
Want to process pain? Like, do you want to fully surrender?
Mhm.
Mm, I have so many delicious memories that pop up for me with rope that have just been wildly expansive. So
Or
maybe
even, yeah, practicing consent even like it, with every step, right? Like yeah, I think I remember seeing we went to there's something here in Detroit known as the Dirty Show, and it's an erotic like art festival essentially, but they have all these different like pop-ups, and they Shibari was one of the pop-ups there. And this was probably God, this was before he moved, so this was maybe 2018. And that's also right around the time where I started getting into this work and working with Alexa and like just yeah, I was so naive back then. Like I knew it was sex toys, I was selling sex toys, and that was like the extent of it. And then so yeah, I remember going to this and we saw like this woman suspended at the show, and I just remember thinking like God, like I was like just so appalled. I was like, that looks terrible. Like that literally looks like my worst nightmare. Why would anybody want that? I was like little Judge Judy up in there. But I was like, the first thing I thought was like, this is gonna hurt. Like, why would anybody want to go through like this painful experience? And then I was like, what if their foot falls asleep? Like, or like all these things. Like, what if their legs go numb? But looking back at that, like seeing this woman in this experience, like she looked so like stunning and also so comfortable. Like clearly
yeah,
this was somebody that has gone through the experience before. I would highly doubt that was her first time. And it's like it also being at the show, there's hundreds of people there, right? Just walking by, passing by, like witnessing her getting tied up and being in the suspension. And it was almost like she was just like sleeping, like just taking a little nap, like inside these ropes. And when I look back on that now, and now being gone through the experiences, I was like, fuck, man, I was so naive. I was so just like, again, yeah, judgy of like, ugh, like who yucking people's yum out there.
Yucking people's yum. You know, it happens. Something that's interesting, I've always thought of this, but anything I am judgmental on,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta take a real deep look because guess what? It ends up fulfilling some like self-fulfilled prophecy
Mm-hmm.
of like it genuinely happens in my life. Like
Yeah.
I used to judge about open relationships
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of my upbringing, so God bless sheltered little JoJo, but also now I'm just like, holy crap, like that is a complete, 360, 180, whatever you want to call it, but very different version of me now,
Mm-hmm.
lots of growth to get to a very non-judgmental space. And I love not judging people, but I also love knowing when I'm like, yeah, that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that feels really good too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or yeah, I think in this case, like from my experience, like that's not for me right now. And who
Hmm.
knows? Because our sexuality is so fluid. So who knows what's going to change a year
Totally.
from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's something I've loved in my Shibari journey is I really committed to floor work
Mm-hmm.
before ever getting into suspension. And that even came into like for me learning about suspension in order to offer that to clients, but
Mm-hmm.
really like for me to experience suspension, that was something else. I got right into that.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's amazing what is accessible to just you and one rope. And
Yeah.
then if you just even add one more person in there, there's so much to explore
Mm-hmm.
down to touch and sensation and communication and consent and knowing boundaries and understanding no's and injuries and even just vibe checks of like, hey, where are you at? What kind of energy do you want to experience today? Do you have any areas of your body that you don't want me to touch right now?
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing those kind of permissions and having like some true warm up too before ever getting into this kind of like super deep sexual energy because it we need warm up. Our,
Mm-hmm.
our bodies and nervous systems need warm up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. So good.
Mm-hmm.
As we're coming to the end here, I would love to ask, what would you say one small shift that could radically change like how someone relates to desire or connection or even this conversation today, like exploring what is one small shift that they could make after hearing this?
One small shift they can make. I really think what comes up for me is intimacy is how to deepen a connection with yourself. So if you're really desiring deeper intimacy, like how far are you willing to really meet yourself
Mhm.
and get curious about yourself? And to me, this is all the way from the good parts of us to the parts that we're like, that might be a less than favorable part of myself, but I am willing to look at it and I'm not going to run away from this. So I really, if I was to boil that down to one word, it's I really hope people take curiosity with them after
Mhm.
this, even if it's not Shibari or my work or your work or whatever, that people really open their eyes to what is available to them in this world, like to not have such a narrowed view on one thing and or um being so limited. There's
Mhm.
just infinite potential out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't play small. Yeah.
For sure. When I asked that, I was like, I knew you were going to answer with the curiosity answer because that's what my answer would have been as well. But also, yeah, when you said like this is one small thing, I want to add to this like you, JoJo, are somebody that has so many offerings for people. Like this conversation today was just one small piece of who you are and what you offer to women, to couples, to men, right? Like everybody in between. I think it's, yeah, I want to speak on you recently became a dominatrix. You are now offering vulva massages. You lead women's circles. You have this whole other spiritual side that we didn't deeply get into today, but they could go back and listen to the Archetype podcast and get a taste of that from you. And you also travel to offer these things and want and have a desire to travel to offer these things to people. So I'd love to hear, yeah, just like how can people connect with you? How can people get more into your space and get more of your offerings?
Thank you for asking, and thanks for naming off all the things. I know it's so many, but your best place to reach me is over Instagram.
Mhm.
And a lot of my work this year is just very customized containers.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just DM me, jojo.seamons.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And definitely follow JoJo on Instagram because she puts out some good content. She'll sing to you, she'll play sound bowls for you. She was my secret Santa this year, and I got all the most beautiful, delicious gifts from her, hitting all the love languages for me. So,
Had
yes,
to.
yes.
Got to take care of my girls.
Well, thank you so much again, JoJo, for coming back on the show and having this conversation with me. I love you so, 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 so much. I can't wait to see you soon.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope to be back soon.
Yes. Oh, they always come back.
Perfect.